and I am here already nervous with one of my favorite journalists in the person of Roland Sebastian Martin. He's an American journalist, and we're having this little pep talk this morning. We're going to talk about his chieftaincy title. We're going to talk about his take on Liberia. We're going to talk about so many other things, but just a little short intro about Martin. He's a former CNN contributor. We saw him on Situation Room, AC 360, and other segments. Just to jump right into it, Martin, welcome to Lean Upon.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and like I said, it's a little conversation we're having, so
That's fine.
take time with me. Okay, so first thing, let's talk about your overall experience since you hit the motherland.
Well, look, over the years I've covered a lot of stories, have actually been places in the United States and other parts of the world, and as a student of history, as someone who appreciates history, journalists are also what they often call, we write the first draft of history. And when you think about those journalists that covered the celebration that traveled with the delegation of Dr. King and John H. Johnson and others to Ghana for their independence as a part of the official U.S. delegation, when you go back further, when you think about Claude Barnett, of course, with the Associated Negro Press and what they covered all across the continent, when you think about Robert Abbott, who founded the Chicago Defender, and then, of course, even going back further to Albie Wells Barnett, Frederick Douglass, you think about Freedom's Journal. So there's always been a long history of Black-owned media covering the stories that matter to us. And we're now living and operating in a world where, unfortunately, Black-owned media is receding in a huge.
Okay, we say good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kwame Opa Wicks, the Director General of the Liberia News Agency, and I am here already nervous with one of my favorite journalists in the person of Roland Sebastian Martin. He's an American journalist, and we're having this little pep talk this morning. We're going to talk about his chieftaincy title. We're going to talk about his take on Liberia. We're going to talk about so many other things, but just a little short intro about Martin. He's a former CNN contributor. We saw him on Situation Room, AC 360, and other segments. Just to jump right into it, Martin, welcome to Lean Upon.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and like I said, it's a little conversation we're having, so
That's
take time with me. Okay, so first thing, let's talk about your overall experience since you hit the motherland.
Well, look, over the years I've covered a lot of stories, have actually been places in the United States and other parts of the world, and as a student of history, as someone who appreciates history, journalists are also what they often call, we write the first draft of history. And when you think about those journalists that covered the celebration that traveled with the delegation of Dr. King and John H. Johnson and others to Ghana for their independence as a part of the official U.S. delegation, when you go back further, when you think about Claude Barnett, of course, with the Associated Negro Press and what they covered all across the continent, when you think about Robert Abbott, who founded the Chicago Defender, and then, of course, even going back further to Albie Wells Barnett, Frederick Douglass, you think about Freedom's Journal. So there's always been a long history of Black-owned media covering the stories that matter to us. And we're now living and operating in a world where, unfortunately, black-owned media is receding in a huge way, where we are heavily invested in what's happening in entertainment and sports and fashion, things along those lines. And unfortunately, we're not providing the kind of news and perspective that's critical to real substantive issues.
And why is that? Is it that folks like you not being aggressive enough?
No, it's not aggressive. It's a function of folks who say, well, this is what the public wants. It's a function of advertisers say that's what I want to pay for. But the problem is what we are seeing in the United States. We are seeing a retreating, if you will, of black-owned media, where we are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I have long said that the greatest fear that I have is that in 20, 30 years, we're going to be asking people who don't look like us to tell our story. So for me coming here, it was importance of being able to talk about the historical nature of this, to be able to provide the perspective to people who otherwise don't know, who would not know about this. I can tell you with full confidence, because I understand the American education system, that very, very, very few Americans, but especially African Americans, are aware of this linkage between African Americans and Liberia.
And how did that get lost? And that was my next.
Didn't get lost.
My next question. The thing is, if you hear folks like you will hear South Africa, you're going to hear Ghana, Senegal, and all of these different places. And looking at the two countries, the history, 200 years today, we're celebrating the bicentennial when the free slaves, we always say some say slaves, they left. Yeah, that was Industrial Revolution. They're like, basically, okay, we're done with you guys. We're trying to find a place where we can dump all of y'all.
It wasn't lost.
It's never been told.
But it's called white supremacy. See, if you do, if you don't control the narrative, the person that controls the narrative gets to tell the story.
Wow.
So if a group of men are telling the story, the likelihood of women being included in it,
I get your point.
It's all who tells the story. And so that's what we have had.
So it's all about greed.
No, it's white supremacy.
Yeah, but greed first.
Then for us, we had black-owned media outlets that did cover such stories, but because with the integration coming in, with changing taste, you're seeing a dwindling number. So you had these black media outlets that did cover these things, that literally sent correspondents around the world to cover things. But now all of a sudden, again, there's been retreat. So for me coming here, it was to say, this is important. We're going to tell this story. We're going to invest the resources in it. And for the last 11 years, at this time, I'm normally at NBA All-Star game. My wife's birthday is February 13th, and we typically celebrate her birthday at NBA All-Star weekend.
But you're here.
I chose to come here to cover this versus be at NBA All-Star weekend. And again, that's a conscious decision to be able to say the story has to be told, and we're going to do it. And I don't know of any other black-owned media that's been here. I knew mainstream media wasn't going to be here. I knew the CNN, the NBCs, the ABCs, the
Reuters, and so forth.
All of them were not going to be here. And so then what would happen? So what? You have this 200th anniversary celebrating free people who were enslaved coming here, and no one knows. No, that's why the story has to be told.
Wow.
But again, the person who holds the power decides what to tell.
What to be told.
So because I don't work for someone else, I didn't have to ask permission to come here. Because I own it, I made the decision.
So Martin Lawrence catches his flight maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow. He lands back in the U.S. and get encircled by a bunch of friends. What would be that story about Liberia and your personal experience?
Well, we've been sending content back already, so we're not waiting till we get back. What we've been showcasing things. We broadcast the event, and we live streamed the event at the stadium a week ago. We live streamed Monrovia Day, that whole event. We've done interviews with a number of people. We're going to be showcasing the nightlife. We're going to be talking about the history, Providence Church, Providence Island, showing your National Museum, and talking about the reality, not just, oh my God, this is what we saw that was wonderful, but also being very honest about what is needed. Look, I mean, as a journalist, that's what you do. And so you have to deal with the question of, okay, how does a nation grow? You have to deal with, okay, how do you build? How do you build adequate housing? How do you deal with economics? How do you provide economic development? Because look, no one wants to say, oh, hey, it was great visiting these places in Liberia, but most of the people are still not being educated, are still with living conditions, are not earning enough wages. And so that has to be told as well, how we, because of the linkage between the United States and Liberia, how that should be even stronger. Also from an African American standpoint, there is no other nation on the continent that has the relationship that Liberia has with African Americans. So the question is, how do you foster that? How do you further build that? How do you, whether it's people traveling here with tourism when it comes to dollars? I mean, again, just for people who don't put this, because I know there's somebody who's watching and they'll say, well, I don't have $100,000 or $200,000 or $1 million to invest or $1 billion. But think about it this way. So I was talking to someone. So what's the average daily wage someone makes in this country?
I can fix a number, but when it comes to government, we're talking maybe...
No, not government.
Right, not government. The average would be around $5.
Okay.
Although sometimes they try to work around the labor laws and whatever, but it's between $5 to $7.
Okay, $5 to $7 a day. All right. So the cart right there, when we brought our equipment up last night, the guy who brought the cart up, that was a $5 tip. Or $10 tip. Now, so again, I'm put this in perspective, because I'm using a standard in terms of
correct
United States. So if we're here a week and he brings that cart up once a day for 7 days,
$35.
$35. That's not a full, that's just going from the floor.
Right.
So, for the person who is saying, hey, wait a minute, what kind of impact could I have if I decided to travel to Liberia to vacation for several days? I can't open a business. I can't build a manufacturing facility. But if I take the resources that I have, and I know what I spend at home, wait a minute, hold up. I could have an impact not just on one person, but on multiple families. The resources that we've spent this week, I dare say, will impact several hundred. Now multiply that by 1,000. Now multiply that.
That's a lot of mobs.
See, so again, we were at the by the beach, one of the resorts. And so the young men, they were selling beads, and it was $1, $2, or whatever they were, whatever they cost. And they were with our folks. They were going back and forth. Well, how many beads? How many beads? I was like, we're not doing this. 50. It's 2 guys. Now, I think one total 40, and I was like, no. Now again, if I was in the United States buying the very same number
of beads,
very same number, it probably would have cost me anywhere from $200 to $300 or $400. I'm not about, from again, other people like, hey man, you're being free with your money. No, I wasn't about to sit here and go back and forth over $2, $50. Now what can that was a 20-minute encounter of looking at beads.
Right.
Now what can that person then do with that for their family, for their business, or whatever? And so we have to. So now by reframing this, when we're down telling the story, go back. Now people begin to look at it differently, who then say, "Oh, wait a minute, hold up. I could be a different way." Yes, you can. And so that's why the storytelling is important, because what you have to realize is that, again, I go back to the narrative, and the reason I keep coming back to that is because that's what drives everything. I'm 53, I'll be 54 in November. You grow up in the United States. What you have been conditioned to, whenever the word Africa comes up, immediately, what comes up, war, famine, hunger, and you go back to the commercials,
right?
Flies flying around, a little black kid, who's impoverished. Again, that's the narrative. So American media, last night we were at one of the resorts. Live band was going. People on the beach. We're social distancing and everything, but there were young folks and middle-aged folks just having time of our life. We could have been that scene. I could have been on the beaches of Jamaica. I could have been on the beaches in Miami. Just that, if you took that scene,
right, the sudden,
and didn't say where you were, you got ocean, beach, people, music, drinks. You would say, "Oh my goodness, that's anywhere." So now all of a sudden, and the photos that I posted, the videos that I posted, now people are going, wait,
where are you?
They're like, wait a minute, that's Liberia? See, again, it's narrative. What have you been told? What if someone said, this is what Liberia is, this is what Ghana is? First of all, you got to understand, in the United States, people often talk about Africa as a country.
Not a continent.
Not a continent. It's a country. Oh, folks say, I'm going to Africa. No. Where are you going? Roland, what do you mean? Africa's a continent. Where are you going in Africa? That's even when there are even Africans who I'll talk to say, I'm from Africa. No. Where are you from? Because in America, no one says, oh yeah, I'm American. No, they say, I'm from Alabama.
Right.
I'm from Mississippi.
Then
what I didn't do, no. If someone says, I'm from Texas, no, Texas is a big state. Where are you from in Texas? Give me your city.
Right.
It's the same thing. And so going back, now when we share the story, now people are going, wait a minute, hold up. You're showing me a side of Liberia I've never seen. Now all of a sudden you're showing me folk pictures and that's there. Yes. And see, when we're traveling down, and again, it's the framing. When we're driving down the street, for the person who's from the West, so when they see folks on the road, with items and stuff, they're not sitting. They're sitting here going, wait a minute, hold up, man, oh my God, that's destitute. Well, first of all, you don't understand the nature of the country, and that's the piece. It's so now you are now changing the narrative by being able for what you show, and that's the difference. Because again, I, being African American, my prism, I'm not coming here thinking, oh, I'm going to show, oh my goodness, these conditions and that being frames what Liberia is. Like, no. This is what we saw. And then the public goes, I didn't realize it existed like that.
Wow. So I know we have about 5 minutes more with you.
No, we're fine. We're fine because I don't. My crew is going to there, but I'll be going later. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me ask you this. There's this statement that is been making rounds on social media about Firestone that we cannot independently corroborate about Firestone that is attributed to you.
It's very simple. I have no problem doing it. When you travel around here, I know how sponsorship works, and that is here. Where do you see Firestone's name emblazoned?
Nowhere.
On banners, on anything. And again, here's why I raised the question. And again, I'm applying the same thing that we say to businesses that target African Americans. Where are you at our stuff?
In our communities.
If we are funding, if we are supporting you, if we're drinking your drinks, eating your food, going to your establishments, well, then we expect you to then support our endeavors. Mm-hmm. Are you showing up at our banquets? Are you supporting our educational endeavors? You have historically black colleges and universities. Are these companies investing in them as well? And so it's a very basic question. If Firestone's been here since 1926, mm-hmm. and they've earned billions from Liberian rubber, to me, if you're going to be celebrating this 200th, a major company like that should say, "Hey, we are a part. We're going to invest in this. We're a partner in this. We want to show the world that we, Firestone, are in support of this, and we are a good corporate partner."
What do you say to the argument? Look at your leaders.
Who?
So you make a deal. Firestone didn't just walk up here and started planting robbers.
Right.
They must have talked to.
Which then means that's first of all, that was a deal that was negotiated. None of us were even alive. Mm-hmm. But deals can also be renegotiated.
Correct.
What I'm saying,
there were bad deals though, but it was a very bad
deal. Of course. And so what I'm saying is, if you're having a celebration like this in the United States, corporate partners come to the table to help fund the celebration. Mm-hmm. I argue that there should be, I argue that you got 1 million Liberians in the United States. What should happen here is you identify the top 20 cities in the United States, mm-hmm. of your largest Liberian population. And there should be bicentennial celebrations in each one of those cities showing the connection. So if you're in a city in Mississippi where people came from here,
right.
Are descendants still alive? Having events there.
That's a beautiful
people have the
idea.
history.
Yeah.
If they're from Virginia, they're from North Carolina, they're from Ohio, and so you do those things. Now what you're doing is you're educating the populace about these. One of your presidents, one of the presidents, African Americans who was here from Ohio. Mm-hmm. Where's Firestone based? Ohio. And so what I'm saying is, in just again, how we do things in the United States, corporate partners, when you have these events, step up, and I put the question out there saying, Firestone, are you doing this? And so when my staff calls the company, I want to know, hey, Firestone, what is your participation in the bicentennial celebration? It's a year-long celebration. And this is almost end of February. It's 10 more months. Where are you?
Is it the same thing where you have Nikes and all of these big companies, Apples and all of that going outsourcing in places like poor countries like Bangladesh? And
yeah, because what they're doing is because here's the deal. Look, business is business. And that is, how do I maximize profits? Can I make products where I pay have low labor,
right,
and sell at a high end, maximize my profits. That's what you're dealing with. What I am saying is, when you talk about this, major companies should do it. Okay, and so here's the deal. Firestone is a major company here. If there were 10 other companies like Firestone here in Liberia, I'll be asking the same questions of all 10. So that's why I posed the question. And so that's what we're talking about. This happens. We see this every single day in the United States, and it's an absolutely fair question. And so I would love to see them step up. Our chairwoman Joyce Beatty, the Congressional Black Caucus, she's from Ohio. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I would love for her to ask Firestone that question. But again, and
you were taking that back.
Yes. See, that question is not foreign to me. It's an easy question. It's an easy question. If you told me there were 9 other companies like Firestone, mm-hmm. I'll be saying, whether 9. I would want to see their names in the blazing. And it's not just them. Okay. You got cell phone providers in this country.
Yeah.
How much they're making money? Are they supporting
a lot?
Are they supporting the bicentennial celebration? You got again. This is just real basic. This is just how we sort of look at it in terms of, we have any events. Okay, who are your corporate partners?
Sponsors,
who are your sponsors? That's what we're talking about. And so it's again, for me, I can ask the question. Now others might say, and I heard it before, Roland, man, you stirring things up. Okay, well then, if I don't ask the question, somebody else gonna ask the question. I think it's a fair question. I just want to know the answer. That's what I do. I ask questions and get answers.
Before we go to the final question, have you tried the Liberian food already?
Some. I've tried some. First of all, I had some great Liberian jollof last night, which was excellent. That was real good.
That's the only one you had.
I tried something else. I forgot what it was called. It was another dish we tried. I can't remember the name of it. We've been, like I said, we've eaten in a lot of restaurants. I did not want to solely eat in the hotel. Okay. Because I'm also a believer, just like in the United States. When we go places, we support Black-owned restaurants. Mm-hmm. When we travel to cities, we specifically seek out Black-owned restaurants. And so we've been to places that Liberians own. That's also important, and a lot of people don't like to want to deal with this aspect of it, but I don't, it doesn't faze me. But and I've heard it. I've talked to people here, that in terms of, okay, well, you got folks who are not Liberian who own hotels, who own restaurants, who own resorts, and I've even had people already ask me on my social media, hey, they've asked me, are some places you're going, are they owned by Liberians? And that's important as well. So that's no different than when we're traveling in the United States, where the Black-owned establishments. And so you can go to a place and they have Black people working there, but are Black people owning. And so a lot of African Americans want to make sure that we're spending our money at Black-owned places, and so we've done that as well. You got this
chieftaincy title bestowed upon you. What does it mean for you?
Well, it's interesting because look, I've done media since I was 14 years old, and so like I said there, they said, we want you to be an ambassador, going back and tell the story. But that's what a griot is. That's all I've done my entire career. Mm-hmm. And so, like I said to them, I said, I appreciate the title, appreciate the honor, but I've never had.
But with CNN on some controversial remark.
No, I didn't.
Right.
That's not
so
true.
Talk about it.
No,
2012.
Not true. I was suspended. Mm-hmm. But I came back. I was tops without Trayvon Martin coverage. And when I left,
I saw that.
When I left in April 2013, that was because Jeff Zucker came in. And he wanted to bring in his own people, and I, along with several other contributors, they ended the contracts, and then they of course went. They talked to, they hired other folks, and frankly, they wanted to hire people that were cheaper. So here's what you got to understand with cancel culture.
Yeah,
and that is, the public can criticize. The public has an opinion, the public has views, the public can weigh in with their view, and it exists. The reality is when you are in a public setting, excuse me, when you're in the public domain, consumers decide whether they want to listen, or whether they want to buy, whether they want to watch, all those different things. I mean, that's the nature of it. What we have to understand is that there's responsibility that comes with that. And so when you're also an outspoken person, when you're also a person who's giving opinions, when you're someone who is, again, speaking publicly, you're going to say stuff that's going to piss some people off, and make some people mad, and it goes with it. But this whole idea of, quote, cancel culture, it really doesn't exist. Here's why. We need to cancel Dave Chappelle. Well, he hasn't gone anywhere.
Right.
Okay, so what are you talking about? But the public still gets to decide if they say, I'm no longer listening to R. Kelly's music because of the allegations he's not being convicted.
Right.
Okay. You as a consumer, you have the absolute right not to buy the music, the absolute right not to support him in any way. Somebody else still may do it.
Correct.
If you don't want to support this artist, you don't want to support this company. We've traditionally had boycotts that have existed of businesses. Dr. King talked about that. They led those with Operation Breadbasket. That's cancel culture. I mean, anybody out there who's watching, they should be reading Dr. King's book, Chaos of Community. Where do we go? Where do we go from here? Chaos of Community, which is the last book that he wrote. He talked about black. He said. Even in his speech on April 3rd, 1968 at Mason Temple, the night before he was assassinated, he talked about we have to redistribute the pain, where he said those companies that do not do business with us, then we will not do business with them. And he specifically mentioned several companies in that speech. Okay, everybody talks about the bottom of the speech. It was a 43-minute, 16-second speech. You can define that as cancel culture. So cancel culture, people, is overblown because we've always had it. And that is simply consumers deciding how they want to support. And so there's some people that continue to do well. There's some people who go by the wayside. But it's all based upon the consumer saying, do I want to continue to support this person? No one, let's be real clear, no one has to support us. No one must watch us, must listen to us, must buy a product. Those are all choices that people make. And that's why you hear the phrase being a good corporate partner. The reason, again, going back to why did I raise the Firestone issue? It's not to embarrass the government. It's not to embarrass Firestone, not to embarrass anybody. But it is abiding by